Hey folks, welcome to Mythborn Live. Let's see, we're season 2, episode 2, and this one is about faster than light communication. Hi folks, welcome to Mythborn Live. I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's going to be awesome, and I am always looking for new subjects, so please comment, let me know what you want to hear, and like, subscribe, share. This one is probably going to be the most science-y of my conversations up till now. If you don't particularly like the details of the science, then I will put the time code below for you to skip forward to so you can get right to the fiction part of science fiction. But if you like science fiction, then you know that great science fiction is based on science fact. And we, as writers, we try and hypothesize with hopefully some credibility what might happen in the future. And I am going to be talking today about faster than light communication on a theory I've had for a number of years: faster than light travel. Talk to you soon. Hi folks, welcome to Mythborn Live. I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's going to be awesome, and I am always looking for new subjects, so please comment, let me know what you want to hear, and like, subscribe, share. All right, welcome back. All right, we're super cool here. Now let's see, quantum communication over a distance. Well, let me start over. Faster than light communication is based upon a well-known piece of science called quantum entanglement. Now, this is the sciencey part, and you need to understand it if you need to understand the fiction part of the science. So let me tell you the science part of the science. So why do we need to talk about quantum entanglement when we're talking about faster than light communication? Okay, let's get into it. So entanglement is an interesting term, right? It is a term that is well known in the physics realms. Entanglement is used in quantum theory to describe the way that particles of energy or matter can become correlated to predictably interact with each other regardless of how far apart they are. Let me give you, there's a lot of like sciencey science in here. Let me give you the sciencey part first, and then I'll give you the really like visual, easy thing to see. So particles, when I say particles, I mean photons, electrons, whatever the particles are that have interacted with each other, retain a type of connection and can be entangled with each other in pairs in a process known as correlation. Knowing the spin state of one entangled particle, remember, quarks, which are the basic building block of atoms, quarks have a spin state, up, down, charmed, strange. They have these spin states. Well, knowing the spin state of one entangled particle, whether the direction is up, down, whatever, allows you to know the spin direction of its mate, of the particle it's entangled with. So what's even more amazing is that this knowledge is due to this thing called superposition. The measured particle has no single spin direction before being measured. Now, this is important, right? It's actually been proven that if you measure one particle and you measure it spin up, it wasn't spin up until you measured it. Until you measured it, it was just in a cloud of probability. 50% spin up, 50% spin down. We don't know, right? But when you measure it, let's say it's spin up. The spin state of the particle being measured is decided at the time of measurement and communicated, this is the crazy part, to the correlated particle, which simultaneously assumes the opposite spin direction to that of the measured particle. Okay, now let me tell you the non-sciencey term, visual, right? This is not true for large state particles. These are quantum particles. They're tiny, tiny, tiny particles. But from a visual standpoint, let me show you this. These two squares are different colors, right? Now, what in essence this theory is saying is, if they were connected, right, and I switched them around and I held them up, right? We don't know what they are. We don't know what's in each hand. They're identical particles. We don't know what they are. But if I measure this hand and it is white, then we know the other hand will be black no matter what. And we know it immediately. Now, here's the difference. Entanglement, unlike what I just did, entanglement is a real phenomenon which Einstein called spooky action at a distance, which has been demonstrated repeatedly through experimentation that these particles decide what they are when you measure them. That means it wasn't white before I opened my hand, it was something. But when I measured it and it should be white, this one snapped to black. Now, imagine that right there is called a wave decoherence, right? That means that if you think about quantum mechanics or quantum physics, most of it is about probability waves, right? Particles are probability waves. When they are measured, the wave function collapses into a particle. This is shown when we look at things like light, right? When we measure it one way, we don't measure it, it looks like a wave. But when we put a camera to watch the photon and which slit it might go through in that double slit experiment, which I went over in my last video, it collapses into a particle. That's because we measured it. Well, the same thing here. If you measure a particle here, it becomes a certain type of spin. It becomes either up, down, whatever the spins are of quantum states, and the other particle becomes the opposite of that, right? So here is my theory on how we can do faster than light travel. Now, walk with me through the riffs here, stay through the riffs, because it's not, it starts very mundane. You remember Morse code? Bop, 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 bop. That right there is SOS, right? 3 short dashes, 3 long dashes, 3 short dashes. SOS. Morse code is basically based on transmitting a binary signal, you know, short or long, or on or off. But in this case, we need to hear both signals, so it's, you know, on or on longer. Now imagine this. Imagine if we created billions of entangled particles. And let's say that we pulled them apart from each other. Now we know this. Actually, if you look up a Swiss physicist, Nicholas Gissen, he's a professor at the University of Geneva. He's done a ton of research into this and in fact has held world records for how far apart he's been able to pull these particles and still have them demonstrate their connectedness. I think his record is somewhere around 23 kilometers, and he may even have distances longer than that at this point. So his whole thing, or the whole thing, is this. 2 particles are entangled. You separate them, but you don't measure them. You keep them in their own respective little boxes. We don't know what they are. Now, it doesn't matter how far apart you take them. Even Einstein said this is crazy, but even if they're light years apart, if you measure one particle, the other particle will collapse. Its wave function will collapse, and you'll know the other particle's state also. Now imagine this. Remember I said Morse code? What if we had a billion or so more particles on one side and a billion or so on this side, and we had the ability to measure one particle here and have a detector over there beep when the wave function collapses. So when we measure this particle, its pair collapses. Now we don't care what the spins are. We don't care. The key is it's the pace in which we measure them. If we measure a bunch quickly, bop, 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 and then a bunch slowly, bop, 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 and then a bunch quickly, bop, 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 the particle sensor on the other side, the wave decoherence, will go collapse, 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 collapse. And if we just measure the pace in which the collapses happen, it's Morse code. And at that point, we have a binary system that can send signals in binary, which is all what computers do. At that point, we unlock being able to send almost any communication, and we have billions of particles to work with. We don't have to worry about running out of particles. So here's the crazy thing. Why can't we transmit binary signals not carrying any information? Not at all. But the collapse of the wave function itself is the information. The pacing of the collapse of the wave function becomes the Morse code that will go across our galaxy, whatever distance we are. Every starship could have them. We could send, computers could collapse these functions and interpret the other side. We can do this without ever transmitting any information through the particle itself. All we're doing is measuring when they collapse. Now, here's where the hole in my theory is. I love to say that I'm a genius, but here's the hole in the theory. How do you know it collapsed? The only way you know is that you're measuring it, and if you're measuring it, you've collapsed all of them. But they did show that they could measure the collapse of the wave function over long distances, and they knew that collapse was happening when it happened. So someone has figured out how to read these collapses without collapsing the entire system. And therefore, remember, we cannot transmit information across vast distances on these particles. What we are not doing, we're not doing that. What we're measuring is the pace of the collapse of various of these wave functions in a binary system. And that pace of collapse is what is transmitting information. I think this could work. And if some researcher out there hears this and decides it can work, please just give me a small credit in somewhere and let me be part of your Nobel Prize. Anyways, I believe that kind of wave collapse communication, right? And I might call it like WACOM. WACOM is wave collapse communication. That kind of technology, the WACOM technology, could let us talk to people across the galaxy faster than light. The downside of anything so far is that we have to actually get across the galaxy, and that still takes normal, at best, light speed travel, but probably many small percentages of light speed travel. So we still got to travel the distance. But hey, we can talk to you the whole time with no delay. Maybe that's what subspace communication is, because quantum decoherence and entanglement may in fact be something that happens through a subspace era. And that is where I think subspace communication comes from. So guys, I hope you're enjoying this second episode. Episode 2, faster than light communication with a little bit of science. I know I told people that this might be a little sciencey, and I'll have a thing at the bottom telling you where to jump to if you don't want to hear the science, but I'm probably wrong because I've tied it all together too much, and actually none of it was not too sciencey except for this part. So if you're tuning in right now, hey, it can work. Rewind and you'll see why. Hey, thanks guys. This is episode 2, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on episode 3, where we talk about water and my percolation theory of planetary ocean formation. The planetary percolation theory of water formation, and why I think water is ubiquitous throughout the galaxy, and why I think water is everywhere, which has already been proven, but why I think every planet probably harbors some kind of ocean depending on the basic elements that came together during its planetary formation. I look forward to it, guys. See you next time, and thank you. Talk to you soon. Hey folks, thanks for joining us for the show. I really enjoy doing these, and I appreciate you, my fans, making it possible. Please like, subscribe, share, and let me know what you want to hear next. Thank you so much. It's your support that makes all this possible. Take care.